Thank you so much for tuning in to the Compassionate Capitalist Show. Of course, this is Karen Rands. You just heard my intro if you're listening. If you're watching right now, and you can see my guest, Siena Dexter. She'll wave real quick. And I'm going to introduce her and our topic. This is one of the things that I always talk about is, when it comes to creating successful, sustainable, thriving companies, part of that process, it seems so logical and obvious, but the very fact that we have companies that struggle with this, and that we have a company such as what Siena represents at Smashbrand, is that companies oftentimes will misfire when it comes to customer engagement, understanding what customers want, the messaging to reach their target market. Are they responding in more, is it working? I'm just waiting to see if my revenues go up. There's ways to measure that and identify whether whatever you're investing in as your marketing message, whatever you've done to establish your brand, all of that is working. That ultimately translates into revenue and profits. But you can test and measure and figure it out along the way. You can figure out how to engage a customer segment and not offend your target market with the tips and techniques that we're going to talk about today. Okay, so that's why you're listening right now, because if you have a product, particularly a consumer product that you want to launch, that you're trying to get better engagement or better customer adoption on, more market share, if you're trying to elevate your brand of your company so that it's, people are more aware and understand it and are attracted to it, you're going to want to listen to this entire podcast. All right. So with that, I'm going to tell you who Siena Dexter is. She is the Director of Brand Strategy and Associate Partner at Smashbrand, where she helps consumer packaged good brands win on shelf through quantified consumer metrics. Siena's main interest is behavioral economics, and economics. For y'all that have listened to my past thing, I'm all about economics, and I get goosey just thinking about this science that we go through that seems to be something that's not scientific, that's all emotion, but it really is a scientific element to it. And that's the quantifiable ways to predict human behavior, which happens to be exactly what Smashbrand does best. So we're going to get into more about exactly that. And she's going to tell us about Smashbrand here. So with that, I'm going to say, well, let me tell you this. Prior to her time at Smashbrand, Siena founded a packaging agency in 2017 and also worked in shopper retail marketing and above the line at BBDO and TBWA. I'm sorry, I didn't look up what those were. Where she specialized in restricted marketing.
I worked at a couple of ad agencies.
Okay.
Yeah, mainly on restricted market tobacco, which is not something I'm 100% proud of. But there it is. I'm with the good guys now.
Okay.
Good all the way.
That's what that is. So was your packaging agency acquired by Smashbrands or molded into it?
No, it wasn't. I started well, I mean, this is I started a small agency out of the one to work with brands from start to finish, from the start of the process, and really help them through brand strategy to create products that will then kind of be born onto the shelf. And through working with Smashbrand, we developed a real synchrony in what we wanted to do, in the ways that we were working, and our passion for consumer testing and our passions for strategy. And I came on as partner not too long ago. So I really found my home with them.
Very good. Very good. So let's talk about, okay, give us the history of yourself, of how you gain your own knowledge to go through those iterations, because I find that oftentimes what people bring to the table with the kind of knowledge that you have, there's experience that they've gained along the way, and then and with that then set the stage to what Smashbrands does as a company now, and their future goal of the impact that they want to have on the business community.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's it's quite a big question to answer. So I'll start with I'll start with kind of experience that kind of brings you to a certain role. And like you said, sometimes you end up in a certain place because of different experiences that you gain along the way that aren't necessarily doing a degree in behavioral economics. It
Right.
may not be that you finish school and you're like, right, this is what I want to do, get me to an ad degree. I actually started at UCL doing behavioral, sorry, ancient history and social anthropology. Can we recut that and then just pause? Ancient history and social anthropology. I forgot my degree for a moment. And
That's
then I
all
went
right.
on to study ancient history. I was, really fascinated from a really young age in how different cultures behave, and really understanding all of the like the red thread that pulls us all together of how communities work together, of how communities behave, of anthropology, of sociology, and all of the different things that link up to help us understand the mind and why we do the things we do. I was fascinated by this. Did do some psychology as well, as part of my degree, and then moved on to work in sales. So
Oh, so then you got to
after all of
experience.
that,
Yeah.
I did my BI, I did my masters. I was like, I'm going to go and make documentaries about Papua New Guinea. I'm going to be the next Malinowski. And do you know what? I ended up working in sales. And it was really fascinating for me because I learned a lot about how to speak to people and how to because like, obviously I don't believe in manipulation. I don't believe in kind of sales tactics that trick someone into doing something that they don't want to do, or in any way coerce them into something that isn't beneficial for them. But there is a way of helping people to connect with a product or a service that is beneficial for them, and helping them to understand why, by understanding their needs first. And when it came to that and understanding how that sales process works, I found that even though I was a terrible closer, I loved having those conversations, and then decided it was the time to combine a love of writing and creativity and also sales and speaking to people, and moved into advertising, where I was really lucky to land my first job at BBDO, and then worked in shopper retail marketing on tobacco, like I said, and then moved on to starting my own agency, where I started kind of working directly with clients, and now lucky enough to work on some incredible brands at Smashbrand, really bringing everything together with a team of people that also believe in this vision of making sure that your product sells before it hits the shelves.
Yeah, absolutely.
In a
Well, and that's,
nutshell.
yeah, no, that's good because I think that, in a way, almost sales, doing a stint in sales should almost be a prerequisite for everybody that wants to go into any form
Yeah.
of business or just stuff, because some people are natural at it, the rapport, then there's the science of like creating a process that takes people through this thing
Oh
and all
God,
that kind of
yeah, the
stuff,
funnel.
the
And then
funnel and
yeah,
all that.
how do you ask those open questions again? I was always bad at that. Do you know what? I was always bad at that. I was all but my manager decided to leave me alone, because what I would do is I would just get on the phone and I had to cold call. And I just had a way of getting people to chat to me when they really had no interest in talking to a stranger that
Yep.
day. And you keep them on the phone for 30 minutes, you go for a drink, and then you explain to them about the product, and then that's it. You've built up a rapport because you've understood them.
Right.
And that's something that a lot of cold callers wouldn't be able to do. It's that mentality applied on a larger scale to
I
brands
was,
that,
and I would, that right there just like pulled back the shades and opened up a window of a conversation thread that we're going to have right now,
yeah,
because it all comes down to that, in this day and age. So in like in software sales, for example, and like I came from IBM. So anytime you're selling any
okay,
kind of like an enterprise B2B kind of a thing, you're oftentimes having that conversation about what are their needs and how does your product fit that needs. And it's a
yeah,
real time back and forth. And you might do a demo and it's real time back and forth.
yeah.
But in the world of particularly consumer products, which you guys focus on,
Mhm.
but also in the world of this 140 character set, we're so fast, so much information coming at us like all the time. Real information, misinformation, just so much that being able to, and there's this thing, oh, a trustworthy brand and understanding
Yeah.
this kind of stuff, but you don't necessarily have the benefit of knowing whether you're on target or not, or delivering what you could do. You could bring in a focus group and you can try to get your target market together. But even all of those things, a focus group on this or
Yeah.
that, they know there's a filter in which they answer.
It's a Hawthorne
It,
effect of knowing their
okay.
answers will change because they know they're being interviewed. You're not giving them the chance to do that in a retail environment, and that's something that you kind of need to overcome. You can do, I mean, you have to kind of just put that aside with focus groups because they are important, but yeah, it's something to be aware of, that they may be
Yeah.
skewed, the data may be skewed.
Yeah. So that was sort of, a big, to me, when you just said that, it was sort of this kind of an aha moment of, let's get into talking about how you figure out the data of that, because it's more than just that A/B split measure on an email. Do they click here, or do you do this Google
Yeah,
ad and they click there, and you change, and a computer will change the messaging and modify this a little bit, and they use AI for this kind of stuff. But it eliminates, or it doesn't, or like, how do you address the distraction factor, that whether people are really responding because of that particular message, or they were just distracted when the other message goes, because those are incomplete. They're sort of a one level. But to really, if you're investing a lot of, if a brand or company is investing a lot of money into a launch of a product, and we can all, and I bet you got some good examples of misdirects. I mean, I can age myself to say, because I actually studied this in college after the fact, or as part of it, was the whole Coke Pepsi
did you?
misdirect. That's every business school student that's gone through a marketing class has probably done the study of the Pepsi taste test, the Coke taste test, and they came out with new Coke. They launched a whole product in response to something that was really not an issue, and created a competitor that they probably would never have been number two, or would take a long time to get to number two, had Coca-Cola not completely misdirected their market research into what people wanted when they came out with new
Yeah,
Coke, right? New Coke and
yeah.
classic Coke. Any of y'all out there that are less than 35 years old, Google it. Because you may not have heard. They've moved on to other stories. And when we were chatting earlier, we talked about Pepsi's misdirect with the Kendall Jenner thing, trying to target a certain audience that they thought they were
Oh
targeting, but they
gosh,
really didn't understand
that
their
was a
audience,
fail.
with the Pepsi ad, where they put as part of the Black Lives Matters protest, they were trying to tap into that emotion. And so, let's get into this data piece that's so strong into how you work with your clients, because I think it's really important for entrepreneurs and investors that are listening, to understand the importance. It's one thing to put it on a
Yeah,
chart, but when it comes to truly understanding your addressable target market and how you're going to engage them to create market share, to create revenue and profit, is more than just a survey. What is, and I'm sure it's your secret sauce. You can't tell it's all of it,
well,
but what's that idea of
there
it?
is a it's let me start at the beginning. I mean, there is a formula, but we're not going to get into the formula because that's a question for my colleague Michael, who does all the testing and has all of that kind of maths genius of figuring out the formula. That is something we're working on. However, let's pull that way back from there,
Okay.
because we need to start at the beginning. We need to
Okay.
start with humanity. We need to start with empathy.
Oh,
And we need
okay.
to understand that it is not a machine that's going A/B test. And that works fine for websites where you go, you've got a traffic of 1,000 visitors. They landed on the page, they clicked off after 3 seconds, whereas this page, they landed on more and they got you to where you want to go. That is a lot easier to test than when you're launching something completely new and you're
Right.
going, what do people want? And in order to understand what people want, especially if you are making a creative product, and oftentimes with Well, I mean, pretty much all the time. I think when you're choosing something, you don't choose rationally. There's that argument over whether you're picking with your mind or whether you're picking with a part of your brain that is subconsciously going, I feel like this is for me. So it's that merger of that logic and that magic, and how do you make the two of them work together, but also bring in a quantifiable way to help our clients know that this concept is going to sell. So let me explain to you how this works. First of all, there's a strategy that happens at the beginning, and you asked me the question about how do you know about whether you're going to make a big the ad campaign, that Pepsi ad campaign. Had they really understood what was at the heart of the Black community, what was important to them, what was important to their customers, had they really taken the time to speak to them and find out what's at the core of this, that mistake would not have been made. So I think it's approaching your customers through a human first lens, not just speaking to them, but also understanding their culture, their community, really kind of digging in. And from almost a sociological, anthropological point of view, like you're now like Malinowski out there in Papua New Guinea, you're out there with the tribal communities, you're there kind of observing their behavior, observe, note it down, take the time to really understand what keeps them up all night. Then you've got your brief. You've got your creative brief. You've got your core around which you start building your brand. So that's how we work. We first of all make sure that all of that field work is done in advance, whether we're using trend reports, whether we're using our understanding of the categories we're working with, whether we're using stakeholder interviews or consumer testing groups in advance. We do all of that. Then we build up the story we're trying to tell. And then after that, we will go to the concept phase. Okay, so here is where the testing comes in.
Okay.
And I'm getting to the good stuff now, because it's not just about going, do you like product A or B? Because anyone could do that. Like, you wouldn't need to hire an agency to do that. You could get a group of 50 people who all fit your demographic, or 1,000 people, and go, do you like this one or do you like this one? What we do is very much built around the narrative that we built at the start of the process. So what is the story that we're telling, and how can we make sure that that story is being communicated properly on pack? Going down to the nuances to your on pack copy, we call it pack words. What call outs are we putting on there? In what order are they fitting? What kind of message are you getting? And which one gives the biggest draw for the consumer? So how that all fits in together with the design and with the concepts that we test, it gives us a picture of a story. So it's not just A/B split testing, it's which story is resonating better. And that helps our clients to make more informed decisions over which concept to choose to go forward to market with. It helps eliminate some of the guessworks in creativity.
In doing your final testing on messaging with like a focus group, I just want to make sure I want to make sure I understood that last part of what you said, because the step between you've created your story content, you have your I guess the emotional, the concepts, but then how does it getting received by your target market to convert to the desired action? How is that identified?
So how do we build out these tests? So how do we get from, instead of pick A, B, or C, which is your favorite one, it's about understanding what is going to move our audience. So are they moved by quality? Are they moved by wanting the cleanest product? Is it important to them that it's the oldest or best product, or that it has the most heritage, which connects with them emotionally? Do they have a resonance with, say, for example, calling a product a hard seltzer or a spiked cocktail? How do they feel about those different ways of labeling a product? And then it's putting all of that together and understanding it within the context of the visual, of the design, because we are a design agency, understanding how the messaging, the design, and everything is working together to make that consumer connect with the product instantly in 3 seconds and go, that's for me. That's
wow.
the testing.
So
And it's
much
not
work
as
goes into a
easy as
3 second.
just,
I'm
yeah,
sorry.
it's not as easy as just choose one. Otherwise, do you know what? Everyone can do it. And that's, that's not, it's a process that's taken us a long time to put together, a long time to
Yeah.
create. And again, I can't take credit for that because
Yeah.
I don't do the consumer testing myself.
Yeah. I think that what you just described, all of that effort and work that goes into that 3 second decision
Mm-hmm.
is such a unveiling of like under the covers, so to speak,
Yeah.
of the engine that makes sales work.
Yeah.
Because it was a lot of times as investors, particularly on early stage companies, but I even think even when some depending on your definition of emerging company or startup company
Mm-hmm.
or whatever it is based off of sales or employees or small business, whatever your definition from a size standpoint, everybody focuses on, do you understand your market and exactly who's your customer and who's going to
Like, what are
buy and
their
all this kind of stuff.
ages? Like, are they married? What's their demographic? What's their race? It's more than that. It's
It
their
is more than
demographic,
that.
it's their traits. It's what keeps them up all night and gets them up in the morning.
And I think that is something that, because of course, the reason why we do the Compassionate Capitalist Show, the reason why I wrote the book Inside
Mhm.
Secrets to Angel Investing is to help people to remove the fear of investing in entrepreneurs as an asset class, that it's not necessarily the most risky classes. There's a whole lot of other classes of
Mhm.
assets that are a lot riskier than this, but it has a great potential if you can put all the boxes in the right box, all the right spots. And part of it is narrowing down. They do this on pitch charts. They do it in a business plan that says my target market is 18 to 24-year-old women and blah 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 blah, whatever, like that. But where they miss it is what you guys do, this thing that says what is it that what is all the messaging of your product that gets translated so that that consumer can make the buying decision you want them to make, which is to choose your product over somebody else's, or choose to just to buy in general when they may not even realize. A lot of times with new stuff, they don't even realize they need it because they're satisfying that need with something else. When you think about, like,
Yes,
let's talk, the spike seltzers are hard,
or seltzers or canned cocktails, spiked salsa, ranch water, which is a different kind. There's so many different kinds. This is a project that we worked on one of these recently. I'm not sure how much I can say about it because it hasn't actually launched to market yet, so I'm not going to mention any names. However, it was part of our challenge to understand how we can help consumers to enjoy this product that's being launched, how it can stand apart from the other products, and what makes it different. Maybe it's not one of these other products. Maybe it's something completely different. And how do we sell that proposition in 3 seconds? And that's a hard task to do. It's like, when you read a book that's like so beautiful to read, and you read it and it's like so easy, you're like, wow, this is like, it feels like it's singing to you, right? Or you read a beautiful ad and you're like, it's so easy, it's so simple, it's so clear. They take the longest time to work on and to understand. It's, you're getting the 3 seconds, but not the 6 months that kind of led up to it, or the 12 years of experience.
Yeah. Well, I think that this new sector of liquor you're talking about, or alcoholic beverages, is exactly that. Because as I watch trend reports, it's like it's the fastest growing segment, but of course they've lumped a bunch of other stuff in there. Because you think about it, we had Bartles and James years ago, right? And they've kind of made, or we had Bartles and James. We had Zini, the one that was like a tastes like they brought it back shortly for a
Is it like an
minute.
alco pop?
Yeah, it was tasted like a gin and tonic, but it was I can't even remember it now. But anyway, it was like a big thing. And so like my age group was like, oh my God, it's back, and
Revival. Yeah, we had Bacardi Breezes. Do you remember those?
yeah, so it's like, and then now
Alco pops. Now it's hard seltzers.
yeah,
Like,
because you want, and tapping into the light beer segment. of both men and women, because it's
Mm,
something that doesn't taste like beer, but it's not super sweety, not super sweet like some of the wine coolers or the Bacardi coolers or some of those might be. That's like too sweet, or you can only drink a few of them because they kind of get too sweet over a
exactly.
time. You want something that's just refreshing, and and so I think that it's been really interesting. I love to watch advertising messages and seeing who and trying to
Yeah.
figure out who's their target market. Is it hitting? I mean, that's just sort of like a hobby I have. Whenever I watch, I actually watch ads on TV.
No,
Sometimes
I
I'll
do too.
back
I
up.
love it. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
we play this. We play. Oh, it's gonna sound so geeky, but I love it. We play this game where we'll like have just bring in a packet or like walk around a supermarket and be like, "What's the 3 second message? Like, what's this telling me in 3 seconds?" And I encourage your listeners to try and do that. Walk around, take all the products, your favorite product. What's it telling you in 3 seconds? Who's it for? What is it? And now try and reverse that back and see how hard it is to do that.
Yeah.
And that's where our real challenge lies,
Or
reversing that.
even and even the ones like from that perspective, I would say to my list to the listeners, if you're invested in a company that is launching into a certain segment, go walk down that aisle. Go walk down that aisle and look at what the messaging that those competitors are. Or if you're the founder, a CEO or a CMO or something like that of an organization, and you're launching a new product. Maybe you're trying to tweak a product to meet the needs of a certain segment that you see as a growing segment that you want to be a part of. Who's already in that? What's their 3 second message? And what do you need to do to be able to tap that message? Because it's not just enough to change a package. There's so much more, as you've told us. You know what I mean? It's not just reboxing something. There's more to that because there's
Yeah.
so much. There's the emotional connection that people may have. You can't just take Aunt Jemima off of your syrup and
Yeah.
think that you've completely changed 100 years of branding and marketing, right? What else is it that you're doing to
Yeah.
resonate, compared to a competitor who came up while you were ignoring that segment or thinking it was insignificant, that has established themselves credibly within a segment that you might now want to target?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's also important to look at what other people are doing, not just so that you can also tweak your messaging to fit in with it, but think about how you can do it differently. Like, for example, if you're looking at, I don't know, dried pasta, and this is one that we looked at dried pasta on the shelf. There was one brand and it escapes my memory exactly what one it is, but it was so simple. And we were going, what's the 3 second message? It looked kind of very retro. It was really simple. It just had a small window. It had an orange box and it just had the brand name, and that was it. And immediately it said to me, home comfort food from the 60s. Not that I'm from the 60s, but it said to me, this is when, comfort food for when home cooking did include dry pasta, and that was kind of a luxury. And that brings back kind of home cooking. It brings back comfort food. It brings back those memories. So what that audience is saying, or sorry, what that brand is saying is nostalgic dried pasta. This is from your childhood. That's what they say in those 3 seconds. And that's
Yeah.
gold dust.
Well, it's interesting because it made me think. I did an interview a while back with a co-author to the story of Prego. And Prego was a brand within Campbell's.
Mhm.
And talking that piece, I'll send you the link to it because I think you would be fascinated with the how they went through that brand decision to launch that compared to what had been out there with what the perception of canned pasta sauces at the time
Mhm.
and where it came out of. And this is where, for those that are listening, I actually just recently listened to a podcast this weekend that was the evolution of the electronic vehicle. And I had no idea that back when the Model T, for example, was first introduced, there was an electronic vehicle back then. And it was the battle of the technology, the innovation. And there's so many factors that get into. Then fast forward when GM tried to launch an EV back in the 70s in response to the oil crisis then, and what they discovered as their own branding and why they killed it. They killed it themselves, even though it was a popular product. and just sort of the evolution of how innovation, economics, and branding come together to be where we are today and what we see happening with the EVs and out there right now. So this is something that for those economic geeks out there, the stuff that Siena is talking about is so into whenever you're bringing new innovation in, new products, it's new to your consumer, even if you have a loyal customer base, as well as your new target consumers. And so that 3-second message, there's so much work that has to go into that. So that like that blending you think is just magic, but there is this, to your point, this logic and consumer insight to create a brand bestseller, that there's so much data and work that goes into something that we as consumers think is just catchy or trendy or something like that.
Exactly. And yeah, I'd like to add something onto that as well. It got me to thinking about, like, here's another layer of thinking for those that kind of really want to start thinking about cultural trends and shifting dynamics and those nuances in society. I love the story of how both Budweiser and Mountain Dew, do you know that kind of case study of how kind of Mountain Dew kind of really took off?
Talking about Coors, when Coors was changing their branding?
No. So Mountain Dew, when they had that,
I'm sorry, Mountain Dew, DEW. Okay. Okay, go ahead.
Mountain Dew. When they were rebranding or launching at a time when everyone, I think this was in the 80s and the 90s, when it was all like sell, money, and let's say the everyday person, the everyday hardworking person was being left behind. The hardworking, perhaps the hardworking man even, that just wants to chill out with his buddies and drink a beer. And that's when both Mountain Dew and Budweiser had almost the anti-capitalist heroes that they had. So they used kind of this kind of redneck mascot. Can I say redneck mascot? Is that appropriate?
Sure.
On
we will say working class, our working class blue collar mascot.
No, but they celebrated it. They kind of celebrated this kind of character that was just did not care at all, did not care about what they said, what they did, and they really celebrated it to such a point that it was like, do you know what? Like, this is celebrating a group of people that isn't used to be celebrating. The same as the everyday kind of working person that was celebrated with those Budweiser adverts. You really kind of brought those, you know, that kind of the what's up adverts. They celebrated brotherhood. They celebrated being together, being young, being silly. It's the antithesis to hardworking capitalism that was being drilled into us at that point. And that's why it succeeded, because they realized there were people out there that were not resonating with this, that wanted something else for them, and they tapped into that.
Yeah, because Budweiser, it's gone through so many iterations over the years of being the everyman beer and the hardworking after 5 get off with your buddies, and then, like you say, because with the emergence of so many foreign beers coming in, as well as micro brews, or things are like independents were starting to come on. They were kind of being relegated over there. And I remember the WhatsApp thing, that particular ad, and it did everybody. I mean, everybody got on board besides, the young urban male. It became something that everybody would joke around about. And, Budweiser, instead of, it became the fallback beer. Like, okay, well, we'll go get, Sweetwater 420, which is one of our local beers here, and Budweiser, right? It was the beer. It became the beer that everybody knew that everybody would like if they didn't like this specialty type beer kind of a deal. Right?
Exactly.
Because they lifted it up and made it available like that way to everybody. So what do you think are some of the brand trends for 2022? And how because the level I've been listening to some of this where, because of COVID, we have our desires of what we think and our what's acceptable. And my friends, I was out hiking with some friends yesterday, and they were talking about, and I'm probably not, I'm going to call it the wrong word. So those out there, I forget now what she said, but it's what some African American ladies will wear on their head in order to keep the style from getting messed up when they
Like
sleep.
the silk scarves that they wear.
Yeah, it is, but it's a cap. They call it the cap. They had a name, but it was something
Okay.
basically a cap. And they
Mhm.
were like, I can't believe they wear it outside. Like, oh, I can't believe they wear, but we've gotten so accustomed to our comfort level of what was acceptable inside our house as now acceptable outside of our house and our comfort level. And they
That's
were
so
just
true.
all going like that.
Leisure
And I was
wear,
like, wow, because
pajamas to the shops. Yeah.
as we were, or just what like they make people sometimes will make fun. You'll see these Walmart memes of people going like they wore this to Walmart, right, and things like that. So we've had this whole change of perception or of what I'm worth because I've lived through a pandemic and now I'm carpe diem. I'm worth doing this or whatever. So is are we still seeing lingering effects of 2020 affecting brand trends in 2022? Are we
Oh,
breaking free of
yeah.
some of that now?
Absolutely. I think all brands today need to be aware of the changes in just our psychology, our behavior as people, how we interact with people, how we interact with our families, what's important to us. Health is more important than ever before when, health is something that we weren't taking for granted before. But then when it's kind of there as a global pandemic, it almost came out of nowhere, and suddenly your entire world changes and it's like, wow, this is serious. It changes the way that you behave forever. And we see these changing shifts affecting consumer behavior even now that we're not wearing masks, that we're all kind of, the pandemic is mostly over, especially kind of in the UK. We're not behaving in those kind of socially distant ways anymore. But what's important to us has changed. Also, how we behave with people has changed. For example, we seek more control over our environments. We want to know that we're safer. I think on a kind of on a financial level, we're seeing more millennials settling down and buying houses because we know that our space is more important to us than ever before. Making sure that our home environments and the spaces we're using are spaces that we could hunker down in if we needed to for 6 months. We're thinking about the products we're buying, and you're asking about trends, and this is important. We're seeing functional products are the ones that are taking off the most at the moment because consumers are asking, what more can this do for me? They're wanting more from their products, perhaps because all the socializing they got was walking around the supermarket. Like that was like the highlight of my day, like walking around and choosing my food for the day in the height of the pandemic. So it's about thinking, what else can it do for you? How can it elevate your life? And like you're saying, it's about the carpe diem, right? It's like seize the day. What are we doing now? How can we elevate ourselves? We've gone through this pandemic. Now we're through the other end of it. Like, what are we doing? So they're looking for products that are going to help them to transform their life. They're looking for products that are going to add to their life, help them with immunity. We know that collagen is something that is taking off a lot right now. We're seeing that kind of as a supplement, or as an ingredient in kind of food and beverages as well. We're also seeing a trend for immunity boosting products, and also products that are going to help you to focus and to sleep better. So focus and sleep are the two biggest residual aftershocks of the pandemic. People are still very stressed out and not sleeping. Perhaps even our anxiety or social anxiety has gone up. We've maybe forgotten how to be out at a bar and just chatting to strangers. So you've got products like CBD, you've got products like ingredients like CBD and brands that are launching CBD products. You've got L-theanine, which is a relaxing ingredient. And brands are now including these functional benefits along with their regular product, not just as pills you take or powders you put into something, but also as part of just food and drink.
Yeah. So one of the things, I think that really came on strong in the last couple of years are your alternative meats. And as we become
Oh,
more and
yes.
more aware of the environment and the impact of beef production, for example, on the
Yeah.
environment. And then there's a potential, pendulum back and forth on this, because it's like, well, it's kind of like when we thought we were going to get all into ethanol and going towards the corn-based products, but then all of a sudden people started making corn for fuel, and they weren't making corn for feeding, and there was this, and there was a shortage over here and a shortage over there, and so it's like, okay, there's a perception. It's that 3-second buy, right? There's a perception that alternative meats are healthier. That's the thing that they've pushed, because you're not eating beef, right? But in reality, in order to make it taste good, they put a lot of
Sometimes they're
fat
quite
in
high
it.
fat. Yeah,
Right, they put a lot
depending
of
on what you're
fat in
putting.
it. They put a
Keto
lot.
bread, high in fat. Like keto
Yes,
is massive. Keto is massive now. I don't know if you've ever gone on a
yeah.
keto diet, but it is not for me. However, there are a lot of people I know that have seen some fantastic benefits for their focus and overall well-being, or for other, ailments they've had to go on this keto diet. It's very high in fat. But the difference between kind of fat, like this is high in fat, it's bad for me, or it's high in carbs, it's about how your body metabolizes stuff. And to answer your question about the trends re meat, we are seeing a growing trend for meat products, and I think for me this is fantastic, because I think there's a lot more flexitarianisms. um People want more control over their life and their lifestyle and their eating habits, and why shouldn't they have meat on a Monday and corn on a Tuesday and a Beyond Burger on a Wednesday?
I think it's the first time I've heard that term, flexitarian. So for those who are listening, if this is the first time you've heard that term, flexitarian, like put it in a comment. Like, yo, I got a new word. I've been wondering, like, I eat whatever. That's flexitarian. I am adopting that word officially
Yeah.
right now. And I'm going to say that Siena Dexter, like, it should get the
Well, I didn't
trademark
coin
on
it. I didn't make
flexitarian.
this
Like,
up. This is a
well,
word, yeah, that I've
yeah,
heard touted around
you
a
are
lot.
in your circles of being in the know. So one of the trends for 2022 is flexitarian, being self-branding yourself as a flexitarian.
It's like being able to choose what you do. Like, why should you have to say, I'm either, okay, veganism and raw food? I don't know if you know, like that documentary that's out on Netflix at the moment, Bad Vegan. I was like, wow, do you remember when raw food was a thing? Like,
I
do you remember
know,
when like
totally.
that
I
was
did.
like
I did the raw food. I was
everyone was
growing
like
my
dehydrating their like bread?
Yeah. I was growing my own sprouts and growing my own
Yeah,
little
they were
these
making
things.
like cheese from, oh, we still make cheese from nuts, but yeah, they were, they were doing all of this kind of stuff, but now it's kind of, it's gone vegan, and vegan is still a growing movement. There are a lot of people that are following a vegan diet for, benefits to the planet, benefits to the fact that they just don't want to eat animals or animal-based products. But also there are a lot of people that just want some more variety in their diet, and I think this is fantastic. And if
Yeah.
anyone's ever tried, if you've not tried a Beyond Burger, try it. They're
Oh
fantastic.
yeah. I always have.
All day long.
I started using it as a flexitarian, I guess, like
Yeah.
years ago. For me, it was a convenience factor where I would take soy bits and I would use them, whether it was taco or spaghetti, anything that used ground beef.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would do soy
Like
bits.
corn. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it would be back then. It was like there was only one brand, and it was kind of industrial. It just had like a white and
Oh,
black label on
really?
it. It's
Oh,
like this. It wasn't a brand like you did now. I'm talking 25 years ago.
mm.
And well, probably my daughter's 24, so let's say 22 years ago. Okay.
Yeah.
And
I was
so
vegetarian back then. I grew up then. Yeah.
yeah,
I was a veggie child, and that was weird. Like people were like, why are you doing this? I was like, I don't know. I'm 8. I just think chicken's gross.
yeah. Well,
But
my family never knew that I used it. Was like years later when like I was gone, and my husband was saying, well, we want to make taco. What do you like tacos? What do you want to do? And I'm like, well, go grab the veggie crumbles out of there. And like, what? Yeah, I've done that because it was convenient and I didn't have the
yeah.
grease, and all you had to do is throw it in with your sauce, and
Exactly.
it
You don't need to
tasted.
worry about food poisoning as
Yeah.
much.
I've always,
You
and
don't need
it
to
was just,
worry about, it feels cleaner, it feels healthier. And like for some people that don't like cooking with meat at home, there's a lot of people that don't like cooking with meat at home, me including, having that option of being able to now go to the fresh meat-free aisle and see all of those options for
so many options.
fake, like what is it, bacon. They've got fake bacon strips, they've got fake sausages, they've got fake mince and burgers, and it's fantastic. And sometimes it tastes terrible, but they're evolving it, and for me
Yeah.
this is fantastic because
Oh
it's
yeah.
actually tasting pretty good.
Yeah. The
It's
fake
not an
bacon was one
alternative
that
anymore. Yeah, it's a
it
good
took them a
product.
while. It took them a while to
Yeah.
get that one right. But like there's a version, I forget what it is, Pure maybe, I'm not sure who it is, that makes a brat that is delicious. It's like whenever my friends would bring it, I serve it at cookouts, and then my friends would bring it. I'm like, save me one,
Yeah.
because it's to me it's better than traditional brats. But we digress there a little bit there.
Yeah, that's and yeah, no,
But
adding on to that, and at the risk of kind of digressing even further, I'm not saying that this is a trend that's going to take off in the near future, but an interesting trend to think about is lab grown meat. And that's something that's very interesting to me. I think
yeah,
it's being developed a lot in places like Israel. It's being developed a lot in places like Sweden and Finland, and they're developing how you can get meat that's taken from a single cow, like a little sample of cells, and feed
yeah.
hundreds and thousands of people with it. So that's interesting, and how that's going to be branded in the future is something that I'm keeping a close eye on, because how do you make meat grown in a lab feel tasty?
Or not weird, like we're
Not
into some kind of
Frankensteinian,
science fiction. And
like,
is it cloning? What is it?
yeah,
And
like
if
is this
I'm
a cow? Is it vegetarian then? Does it fit in with like kosher or halal restrictions? Like, how does this
yeah,
even work? It's some
and
science. Yeah.
some of my vegetarian friends is like, oh, I don't eat anything that has eyeballs, or I
It's
don't
like,
eat
okay, this
anything.
doesn't have eyeballs. It's never had
Yeah,
eyeballs. Will you eat it? They'll still be like, I don't know. I don't know.
that's there's
Like,
a but as we know about consumer trends, and we look back as somebody that has studied sociological history and the history
there's
of this and
anthropology,
that,
yeah.
all of this kind of the evolution of innovation with what people become more comfortable, their mind gets wrapped around, and they're like, oh, I get that, I understand that. And that whole leapfrog effect of you know being the leader in that, and Morningstar was a leader in a lot of the stuff when it came to alternative meat products, but
Yeah.
they've almost been leapfrogged by the newer, younger, companies that
Yeah.
have come out, where it's like you see them changing their packaging to be more like, saying the words, because new people that are adopting some of the food alternatives to not be meat, like a beef alternative, don't even think about Morningstar necessarily as being a brand that's been around 20 years doing that for
Yeah,
you.
you need to say vegan. You need to look green. Also, there's interestingly, I think, well, with Gen Z being kind of one of the biggest demographics after millennials to be, adopting veganism or having grown up vegan and never having eaten meat because they've grown up in a vegan household. I think a lot of brands are looking at how they can appeal to them. And Future Burger is a brand that's doing that quite well by creating almost like emojis kind of on the
Yeah.
front of their packaging, and really kind of saying this is a Gen Z brand, like this is for teens. And I think that goes back to what you were saying about immediately letting the consumer know this is for you. So you can
Yeah.
launch a meat-free brand, but if you're targeting Gen Z, then you should do it in a certain way
Yeah.
and understand that.
Yeah. Well, and that also, when it comes into like the science behind it, you just sort of, there's like the segment of a segment. So yes, there's vegan or vegetarian. And then you have those that have brought their family up. So that means they've been making it for years before any of
Yeah.
these easy to use project, these convenience type products are going to do that. So I got a friend of mine then that said, oh yeah, when they came out with Beyond Burgers, I wanted my mom to taste it. Well, she never had a beef burger. So to her, it wasn't like, oh, this tastes as good as a beef burger that you gave up.
Like, oh,
She
it's
never had
tasty.
one. So she's kind of
Yeah.
like, why do
Better than a
people
nut
like
roast.
this? What is like what they,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? That's a whole
Yeah, it would
nother.
taste strange, I suppose, because I think for a lot of vegetarians growing up in, in the 90s, it would be either you have all of your sides without the meat. So either you get your potatoes and your veg and you just don't get the meat, or you're very lucky and someone cooks you like a nut roast or like, a pie or something that you can eat. But now you go in all the supermarkets, and a brand that stood out to me is this pie brand called Young Vegans. Maybe it's only over here in the UK. And they are all about Gen Z. Their branding is all about targeting Gen. They even call themselves Young Vegans. There is no clearer way of saying we're for young vegans, and they look like it's very kind of comic book in their branding. So
Yeah. So
yeah,
as we start to kind of wrap this up and bring it
yeah,
back, we've had a good time, had a good time chatting with you about this stuff.
good
As it
chat.
like nobody's listening. Let's just talk. So the uh you're in the UK, and
Yes.
my daughter spent a summer in the UK, and it was really interesting in her coming from America over there and looking for comfort brands that she was familiar with, and of course there's
Mhm.
not in a lot of cases, and even brands that we might have that we don't have access to here that they have access there. And I've had friends that have expats that live here, and they're like, oh, I love this and can't get it here, and I'm looking for something that's like this. So when it comes to a brand out there, a company that, they always say like, oh, here's our addressable market and there's the US and that's everybody else. But there really, how much needs to go into understanding not only just the difference between like a age demographic, but actually a whole origin of what they're accustomed to in their local community, that concept may never have even been. It's
Yeah.
a double education. It's not just the three
Yeah.
seconds of choosing this one over that one, but it's like I've never even thought about having that type of a product. I'm trying as I'm saying, I'm trying to think of an example of the difference between them, but you probably know one
Yeah.
even
Do you mean the
better.
cultural difference between kind of like UK and US and how you bridge that kind of as an international agency?
Yeah, like both in a way. Like for example, I don't know, cottage cheese might be called something different over there. Pimento cheese, things that we take for granted here,
Oh yeah, that's
that
true.
you might have a
You
whole.
called milk creamer. That was weird. I was over with a team recently, and I was like, oh, can I just have a flat white? And they're like, what's a flat white? Like what's like we just do drip coffee. I'm like, what is drip coffee? And I'm like, can I just have some milk? And they're just like, you mean creamer? I'm like, what is creamer? Like this was strange. It was interesting. So yeah, there's definitely, some getting used to. I mean, most all of 99% of our team is US based. We're just kind of me and another team member over here in the UK. But I think the approach is the same as if we're looking at a demographic of, I'm just going to throw an idea out, like Louisiana. If we're looking at, say, developing a sauce brand from Louisiana, and we need to understand hundreds of years of heritage around food there, how the communities eat. Maybe we go on TikTok, maybe we watch some videos, maybe we understand kind of what's involved in it. I think in the same way, it's a bit easier for us to make the switch from like UK to US, what brands are familiar. It's a slightly easier thing, but we still take the same understanding. There's still consumer first approach. And then also it helps that, we can still kind of have our team visit supermarkets and let us know if there's something that we're completely missing.
Yeah.
Um,
And then, and I'll, because I felt like we didn't cover this and I knew we wanted to, but I'm going to just wrap up because I want to say there's an evolution of, and I'm not going to, and it's not because of people being woke. Okay. That's not that. But there's an evolution of people of self-awareness of things that was okay to them because they had been conditioned that this term or this phrase or whatever was okay. And it's no longer okay, in part because they choose not to identify by that. And that's within this, the feminine hygiene conversation, right?
mm,
That says, it's just another product. Are you ready? And the link is going to be in the show notes to the article that Siena wrote, because I think it's an important thing for everybody to be aware of how products and things evolved over time, because who was setting the tone and the tenor and the messaging of that product for 20, 30, 40 years. And now, as the target market enters into their own economic independence and their own self-awareness, they're like, you know what, I don't want to be sold to that way. And it's an opportunity for independent brands to break through the noise, to resonate directly with their target market. But also, if the bigger brands don't figure it out, they get canceled. But it's not being canceled, it's because they're not in touch with their true customer market of what that person's awareness is and why they want to choose to watch, listen, buy, consume a certain product over another product. And so within that context, address what you said in that article about how, this has evolved within it comes to body care and personal care items, and how it's been defined as a segment and to consumers.
So we can talk about feminine hygiene. I don't like saying that term. I don't like saying that term. So it's I think the bigger question is here how to understand how our language is evolving and what language is appropriate and what language isn't appropriate to use. And I think the point at which organizations need to ask themselves what voices are important to them to listen to. Sometimes it's all voices, but sometimes they're conflicting. For example, we work with brands that are launching products for women, and even saying this is a product for women is a loaded term now, because we have, what is woman? Is it cis woman? Is it trans woman? Is it, what is woman? And I think it's important to take time as an organization to kind of check in with yourself and see, in terms of your values, in terms of your audience, what message do you want to put out? Because there is no right and wrong when it comes to certain ways of communicating. Sometimes you can't please everybody. However, when you're looking at terms like feminine hygiene, it's a bit of an easier one, because there really isn't anyone you're going to be hurting by changing it to period care. I think when you're thinking about a term like feminine hygiene, or it's like you're saying, basically this is to make women more clean, and you're talking about a very natural bodily process, and there is no male equivalent, there is no male hygiene section, and there really should be, then I think at that point, as an organization, you might look at that and go, okay, if we follow this advice, would we be offending anyone else? Do we need to be weighing one group over the other? And is this a decision? If it's a no-brainer, just change the language. It's really easy. If you're thinking, okay, if we don't say women, we're offending, one group. If we don't use a different term, then we're offending another group, then it's a much trickier conversation. And it's, really kind of thinking about your core audience, your values, what is important to you, and doing what feels right, and being as inclusive as you can be, of as many people, which can be challenging these days.
Yeah. That to me is a great point to end the conversation on. Please, everybody, go to smashbrand.com to learn more about what Smashbrand does. And if they want to follow up, they can connect with you through LinkedIn or something if somebody wants
Please
to reach out to you.
absolutely. If you want to find out more about how we use consumer testing to help brands win on shelf, then please get in touch via LinkedIn. You can also get in touch via the website. We would love to hear from you, to hear about what projects you have in mind and how we can help you to connect the magic of creativity with your future customers.
Absolutely. And with that, I want to say, as always, onwards and upwards. And please visit KarenRands.co to learn all about how we help entrepreneurs and investors. Thank you so much, Siena, for being on the show today. I mean, I really do think the audience of investors, entrepreneurs, and executives have benefited from this conversation.
Thank you so much.